Hi everyone, and welcome to AWIN's brand discussion at this year's virtual PI Live conference. This session is going to explore how online has moulded our advertiser brands' businesses in 2020. We'll be seeking their advice and strategic wisdom on how they've each utilised the channel to navigate the challenges they've faced, and we'll answer your questions on strategic partnerships, data optimisation, and how they're planning for 2021. So, introductions. My name's Amy, I'm a UK Account Director at AWIN, and joining me today I have Ollie, Senior Product Owner from BT, and Piers, Head of Digital Marketing from Post Office. There won't be a live Q&A for this session as we captured your suggestions ahead of time, and a huge thank you to everyone who submitted the questions they'd like to hear our brands answer today. Just to quickly set the scene before we move on to these questions, I think you'll all agree that one of the words that goes hand in hand with 2020 is unprecedented. We're living through surreal, unknown, and really hard to predict times. However, from an overall multi-sector network perspective, it's really clear that the affiliate channel has proven to be very well placed to support the world's rapid shift to digital this year. We find ourselves in a position where AWIN UK has recorded year-on-year growth in terms of not only new client program launches, but also publisher sign-ups to the network and tracked commissions. Of course, this growth I make reference to is a combined AWIN view, and I'm very respectful of the fact that there's a lot more at play within that. To get a little more granular, this line graph showcases year-to-date sector performance by AWIN sales volumes, and it's clear to see just how differently each industry taps into our broader channel picture. Whilst we recorded an unavoidable decline in travel sales during the height of lockdown, we saw rapid online retail growth, but also a relative steadiness from the finance and telco sectors. And they're the key call-outs for me, and something that I really want us to explore within this session with Piers and Ollie. So I'm now going to open the stage to them as our sector specialists. Hi guys.
Hi Amy.
Thanks for joining us. Cool. So let's start with Ollie with question 1. So as this year has accelerated the usage of digital for most consumers, are there any challenges you are anticipating having to address within your sector as everyone puts more importance on it as a revenue channel?
Yes, I mean, for us, digital's always been an important channel for us. So we do significant volume through digital. But I suppose the main difference for us is we've got quite a diverse distribution strategy in general. So we have digital, we have stores, we have the call centres. Obviously, when the first wave happened, we obviously lost the stores. I mean, they closed overnight. And we saw a lot of pressure on our call centres because people were either unwell, they were unable to get into the office, or they were high risk, so they were sort of isolating. So for us, it was kind of about how can we use those colleagues that we have. So we did some quite cool things, like we introduced chat to a lot of the in-store agents, so they were able to keep speaking to customers. Obviously, it was in a different way to the way they were communicating before, but it was great to have people with that real kind of face-to-face customer knowledge working in our chat channel to help support the increase in digital demand that we were seeing over that time. I suppose other than that, we also had got a massive focus at the moment on rebuilding a lot of our digital journeys. So it's always been easier to kind of purchase in other ways to an extent, just because of the complication of buying our product through digital. So we're doing a lot of work at the moment to try and streamline that and make it a lot quicker for customers to purchase online without any assistance. Rolling in with the fact that I suppose digitally it's sometimes harder to kind of communicate the nuances of a product with a customer, whereas when you're kind of face-to-face or on the phone, you can kind of answer people's questions a lot easier. And you can show them product demos, that kind of thing, and that's kind of missing from digital. So we're doing an interesting trial at the moment where we've set up some of our in-store agents again with kind of video chat functionality. So you can go onto the website and you can start a video chat with someone in store. So it's like a one-to-one experience, similar to if you walked into a store, and they can show you products. So if you're interested in a particular mobile or maybe one of our TV products, they can actually do like a walkthrough and show you what the product looks like from different angles. It really brings back that kind of personal experience you get in some of the other channels, which I think digital has struggled historically with kind of having that personal experience with the customer. So I think for us, that's kind of the two key things that have made us change the way that we work in digital.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's some really cool call outs there, and it's almost forced the engagement in a sense, and allowed you to kind of, definitely move into that next wave of engaging with those consumers. So thank you so much for sharing that. Piers, I guess, how does that relate to what you guys have been doing?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to what Ollie had said. During the pandemic, we as a business post office, we actually had to maintain quite a lot of our post offices open to the public to support local services, a lot of banking transactions, and as people sort of migrated back to their local communities out of the cities, the post office became perhaps even more important in that local community than it was before. I think for digital, primarily my background is digital marketing and acquisition. We refocused our digital energies into supporting the retail network, so making sure we could facilitate the basic things, just like messaging, finding out where branches are, finding out if they're open, finding out what services they offer. So that, for me, that was really the big shift, change in messaging, using our digital services to facilitate the physical network. And I think going forward, we will see much more of that in the future. So we're looking at different technologies around queue times, finding out when the post office is less busy, when you can actually get there and manage your transaction as quickly as possible for that physical transaction that you want to achieve. So that's key. And then obviously we sell quite a broad range of products online as well. So again, we've been making sure that's as easy to do as possible. So from a financial perspective, our loans have been available to apply for all through COVID. We've been supporting our customers there, and just generally making it easy for the customer, the whole experience to do business with us.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to acknowledge the product mix that you have, particularly on your side. I think that's obviously been a particular thing to navigate this year. I suppose it's different in that sense because the product mix is so broad. Yeah. Okay, cool. We'll move into question 2, and I'm going to ask Ollie this one. What key behavioural shifts have you identified across your customers' interaction with your brand in 2020? Has there been a difference in spending amongst different audience demographics? And do you think that these new habits are here to stay?
Yeah, so I mean, this is kind of a kind of strange one, and I think you probably expect some of the stuff that we've seen, but I wouldn't necessarily say that we've seen changes in line with demographics. I think it's fairly consistent across the board. There's probably like 2 key things that we've really seen. The first one is that we're definitely seeing people demanding faster and more stable broadband connections. Definitely makes sense. I mean, people are spending a lot more time in the home than they were before, and probably doing different things in the home than they were doing before. So, potentially you've got 2 adults both working from home. You might have children, trying to keep them entertained or even studying. So we've definitely seen people kind of, I think it's sort of placed a new importance on their broadband connection at home, and just sort of highlighting the significance of what a poor connection is for a customer. So we've seen people moving up the portfolio in terms of speed. We're seeing people attaching things like complete Wi-Fi. So, it's our solution that gives you Wi-Fi across, around the whole home. Before, maybe you weren't quite so bothered, but I mean, I don't know if you've seen our ads, but maybe if you're working up in a loft, like, and you're struggling to join meetings at work, we're seeing a lot more demand for those kind of products. So I think it's people just really trying to fulfill the needs that they've now got of their connection at home. The second key one is probably actually, this one's very interesting. So we saw a massive spike. It's sort of died down a bit now, but we did see a massive spike at the beginning of people taking out broadband for the first time who didn't have it before. And we had a lot of interaction with our chat agents telling us that a lot of the time it was sort of children buying on behalf of sort of elderly relatives, so they could stay in touch, because of social distancing, and they couldn't go around their houses and check up on them. So we did see quite a big increase in people buying broadband for the first time, which I thought was quite interesting. I think it's mainly that kind of older person who probably didn't see the benefit of having broadband before, and is now seeing that benefit. I mean, just personal example, like I know that my dad now online banks and he never would have done that before. So I think it's kind of that change in mentality, and it's kind of accelerated people's move on to digital. So I think that's probably the 2 key things for us. Yeah. In terms of are they here to stay, I think definitely. I think people that are now becoming digital savvy aren't going to suddenly stop doing that just because they don't need to be as much anymore. But in terms of the heightened demand for speed, again, I think this is making people realize how much more important it is to have a really strong, reliable connection at home. And I think, the ways of working, we don't know how it's going to pan out quite yet, but I think ways of working are going to change. I think people who can are going to probably spend more of their time being home-based versus office-based. Maybe it'll be a mixture of the two. But I think it's probably a trend that's here to stay.
Yeah, I think that's really just so interesting, just more on a consumer level as well. I think I can relate to so much of what you've just said around, internet speeds, and I guess maybe having a bit more cash if people aren't commuting to spend more on bigger packages and things like that. And just, yeah, I think it's interesting as well about kind of getting pockets of new audiences who maybe wouldn't have joined you for a few more years, but actually that's been accelerated by the need for it, I suppose. So quite interesting that people's relatives have been setting up them. I definitely think my family could do with a bit of that as well. So yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you. Okay, I'm actually going to move on to question 3 now. So we'll put this one to you first, Piers. Within the current climate, what steps have you taken to speed up the delivery of insights and data to publishers to ensure the right offers and products are being pushed at the right times?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because I suppose what's been the unknown through COVID has really been the unknown from government point of view. We've been very closely aligned to what you can and can't do, if you can go out, if you can stay in. Traveling has obviously been a massive one that's impacted our world at the moment. We are the UK's largest supplier of travel money. We have a travel money card and we have travel insurance as well. So as you can imagine, if people aren't traveling, that's a direct impact on our business. And messaging to publishers of what we're selling at that point is key. What we found through COVID, I'd say, is actually much like we're doing now, we've been communicating a lot more on group calls. We've actually found that we've been meeting a lot of our top publishers, just in group calls and chats, and we've been able to communicate with them and find out how the market's doing, what we can actually expect to see in terms of trends coming from their traffic levels, from their demand levels, and we've been able to just message them generally, over the phone, face to face, and that's worked really, really well. I'd say it's improved our communication in some aspects. I think in terms of insights, it's been a bit of a two-way street this time. We've had a lot of sharing of data from the likes of big aggregators, telling us what they're seeing on their side in terms of demand, and in turn we've prepped the market and had to change quite a lot of our products to match what's right for the time. So an example of that could be travel insurance. Some of the big comparison sites would only list travel insurance if it was full medical cover, and obviously a lot of competitors in the space couldn't do that at the time because of all the changes internationally. So again, having that personal communication over calls has been really, really useful because it's been so agile the way it's been changing, as I'm sure everyone's aware. So yeah, I think that's been probably the biggest change for us.
Yeah, I guess it's that almost like moving to more of a reactive way of working and all sort of mucking in together to make it work for publishers whose they're their businesses, their brands in their own right as well, right? So just making sure that we're all mucking in together and that we're being able to be as reactive as possible, because I suppose we're used to having these sort of longer term roadmaps with big brands like yourselves, and actually it's quite difficult to
absolutely. Yes, it's a complete change. We've been very much responding as quick as possible through this period.
Yeah, well, thank you. How about you, Ollie? Does that align with what you guys have seen or how you've been managing this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar. I mean, we're in sort of uncharted territory. So as much as we'd love to have a 1-year strategy and rigidly stick to that, it's you just can't do that in this sort of environment, because you need to be reactive. You need to see how the market's acting and make sure that your propositions are sort of responding in line with those reactions. And you can't operate in a silo in this sort of market, because I think, us as a brand, we're never going to have enough data to know exactly what the wider market is doing. So definitely a lot of communication with partners to see, what are they seeing out of customers at the moment. We may have seen a big spike over a certain period. Is that the market that's growing, or is something else driving that? So I think that kind of two-way sharing of information is definitely helpful for both parties. From our perspective as well, there was a lot of, at the beginning anyway, there's a lot of communication we needed to give people in terms of what we could install and what we could deliver. I think people were worried about engineers coming into the home. Most of our products don't need that, but I think there was a lot of nervousness from customers. So we had to provide a lot of information about, where we were still operating, what the kind of limits were of our operations. And I mean, I think it's about 85-90% of customers, there wouldn't need to be any, in-person visits, so they were fine. But I suppose it was just communicating for those, slightly more edge cases, what would happen in the instance where they did need someone to come in. So it's definitely about that communication that you have with the partners to make sure everyone's aligned on sort of what they're selling. I suppose the next bit for us is just trying to actually share that next level of data with our partners. So at the moment, if you run a check on a comparison site, you get quite a basic response on what speeds and products you can get. So we've done a lot of work over the last year, and it's hopefully launching in the next few months, just so we can give a much more accurate reading to customers of what they can expect, and make sure we're showing them the sort of full availability of products that they can get at that property.
That's really interesting. And I suppose it almost sounds as if for you guys it's been more important than ever to maybe have closer alignment internally with your marketing teams as well as PR and branding teams as well, in terms of making sure that users understand, like you say, Ollie, the impact of somebody coming into the home if they needed to, and things like that. I suppose it's almost like we're having to consider that in every channel, whereas maybe we've been a bit protected from that before within this channel. That broader sort of brand piece, I suppose, is particularly relevant, especially for those audiences who maybe aren't familiar with the brands in an online form. So really interesting. Thank you, guys. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. This one is for Piers. With the increased pressure that 2020 has brought so far, how do you justify the incrementality of partners in the affiliate channel to the wider business? And how do you see your strategy evolving in 2021?
Interesting. I think for us, we've never really had too many challenges in terms of the incrementality of some of our core affiliate partners. I think we've always found that as a channel, it's and we've seen this from when we paused activity to when we resumed it. We've seen the volume it can drive for us. So it's definitely part of our core sales driving activity. And actually the halo effect of that as well, just being visible on a lot of our partner sites, it is massive, and that's in terms of call center inbound calls, visits to our branches where people may ask about offers they've seen online as well. So we understand that it does more than what we see on a last click necessarily. I think going forwards, we're probably going to be looking at how we can do more in terms of looking at partnerships and actually driving activity from online to offline as well. And I think that will be a challenge for us in terms of proving incrementality and actually tracking that customer flow. And that's something we will be looking at in the future. And I guess how we do that is undefined at the moment, but it's about testing and learning and figuring out where the incremental sales are, and we'll work closely with our key partners and new ones to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting as well that dynamic of actually online to offline as well again, and actually how relevant that is for your brands in particular. I think it's key not to get caught up in the digital growth part, and understand that there obviously is still very much a need for that kind of presence as well, even in this new world that we're going into, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we look at we're trying to look at it more as an experience. So if you're a customer who wants to approach us via via your phone, via desktop, or if you're a customer that actually wants to go into a branch and have a conversation. We want to enable that experience no matter what communication you prefer as a customer. I think that's really important for us. So I think we all know that customers, their touch points are quite a few before they potentially get to a final sale. So we're always looking. That's the holy grail. We're always looking for the right answer on that. But yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, and we're close to time, so I'm going to hopefully wrap up with quite a nice question for you both. So to end, what advice would you give to anyone just starting out in the channel and wanting their brand to succeed within this new digital era that we find ourselves embarking on? And Ollie, yeah.
You want to start? I think the key thing that I would say is just to make sure you're always taking like a customer-centric approach to everything you're doing. I think you need to look at what other people are doing in the space that you're going to operate in and try and think about how you can kind of radically make that experience better. Obviously, coming from a kind of more established incumbent company, I'm very aware of the limitations that big companies do have. And I think when you're starting out, you've definitely got that opportunity, where you haven't got legacy platforms or legacy systems you need to work with, to really kind of reimagine that journey. And I think if you think of a lot of the kind of digital challenges we've seen over recent years, people like Monzo and Revolut, they've really been able to kind of rewrite the rule book. And I think if you're starting out from scratch, that's probably where I'd say like you need to take that advantage and definitely run with it, because you've probably got a better opportunity than others to kind of really nail that customer experience from the get-go. I think from an affiliate perspective in particular, I think the one that I've always held a lot of importance against is just how much of a kind of a social channel it is. And obviously it's difficult for us to be social at the moment, although there are ways to achieve it. But I think definitely make sure that you're reaching out to new partners and speaking to them. Like I think there's so much value in a phone call over an email, to really get to know someone, understand what works for them, and to sort of sell your ideas to them. I think that's probably the key thing that I would always say. It's definitely something you should be focusing on at the beginning. Is just make sure you're building the right relationships with the right people, so you can get the most out of the channel.
Yeah, definitely. I think on a business level, that's a challenge that everyone's facing at the moment, right? How do you replace that sort of interaction in actual meetings, and being able to grab a drink and have a meeting with a drink is obviously that art has been lost currently. So I think
an event like this, we wouldn't normally be sat at our screen, chatting to each other. We'd be, in the same room. So,
yeah, definitely. No, I think that's something that we definitely need a bit more creativity on how we do online bonding stuff. But relationships are key. That's really cool to hear that. And I think a lot of people dialing into the session will totally feel that too from an affiliate perspective, and really building those relationships and that trust that goes with it in the climate that we're operating in. Okay, and Piers, what would your advice be?
Yeah, I think Ollie's he's touched on a lot of points I agree with there. I think on top of that, I'd say as a newbie entering the affiliate world, be consistent as well. Be consistent in your objectives of what you want to achieve, and be transparent and open of those with your partners, because if you do that, you'll probably find there's a wealth of knowledge and expertise amongst the partnerships you build over time that, as we talked about earlier through the session, is two-way. You can learn an awful lot from the experience of affiliates and partners, publishers that have been in the business for a very, very long time. And lean on your network. So AWIN, for example, have all the connections available. So I think definitely, again, as we've said, it's a social industry. It's about meeting people. It's about reaching out. It's about conversations. And I think if you do that, you'll very quickly figure out the right and best way to approach it as well.
Definitely. I think, just from a network perspective, it's amazing to hear about, kind of transparency. I think that's all that we stand for as a network as well. So just sharing those objectives and making sure that partners fully understand that, and equally that you understand their objectives, I think is definitely the recipe for success for all three within that relationship. So I think they're really nice bits of advice to finish with. So yeah, we are now out of time. So a big thank you to both Ollie and Piers for joining in for this session. I hope that you've enjoyed this and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.